This is Carolina This Week. Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis.
Good morning and welcome to Carolina This Week. The 7th Congressional District still needs to get approval from the federal government, but has been signed off by the state, including Governor Nikki Haley. One person has thrown their hat into the ring so far, and that is Republican Thad Viers, who joins me this morning. Thad, you said on our show the last time that you'd let us know that when you were going to run. You sure did, and here you are.
Yeah, I want to say that it's going to be approved by the Justice Department. There's going to be some tweaks, as there always is, but this is the first time in almost 30 years that the governor has actually signed the Congressional Redistricting Plan. So it's a higher threshold for the Justice Department or the courts to overturn. The public testimony was there. What we're really doing is going back to where we've always been from the founding of our nation, and the PD always had a representative to Congress. So we're just putting the family back together again. Excited to announce my candidacy last week, and two things actually kind of pushed me in that direction. One was the governor signed it and the plan was in Horry County. But secondly, what I saw in the nation with the quote-unquote debt deal was a horrible nightmare for our country. I mean, what they did in Washington in 36 hours was they added $2.5 trillion to our national debt with the promise of taking care of $1 trillion cuts in next year's budget, which sounds great, except we're averaging $1.5 trillion in the budget deficit every year, and the promise to cut $1 trillion over 10 years. Like Ronald Reagan said, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help. And it's just no one takes it seriously. And I think the markets reflect that. I think our economy reflects that. And we have to send someone up there that will not take a scalpel to the debt, but take an axe. I mean, because it's a national security issue. We have to be serious about it.
Yeah, you nailed it. 14% approval rating for Congress right now, an all-time low. It's never been that low. And when you think about even presidential approval ratings, I've never heard of a presidential approval rating in the modern era at 14%. That is a low approval rating. And a lot of that has to do with gridlock. And a lot of the gridlock over the debt ceiling debate came because the members on the far right and the members on the far left couldn't come together. I'm assuming if you were to go to Congress, you would be on the far right.
I would be on the far right, but I would like to say I'm a pragmatic elected official. If you look at my voting record, I've always been extremely conservative, but I'm not one to just throw bombs. I want to offer solutions. It's clear to me that Washington does not have a revenue problem. Washington has a spending problem. For far too long, government's been doing things government should not be doing. They're trying to replace the parents in the homes, God in church. We need to get back to the basics of government, protecting persons and property. We can do some things that will that can maintain our promises to the senior citizens through Social Security and Medicare, while at the same time protecting future generations of Americans. President Reagan and Speaker Tip O'Neill in the mid-'80s, they struck a deal to raise the Social Security age by a couple months, and that added almost 15 years of sustainability for Social Security. There's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of places where there's just outright waste. Obamacare is a disaster. Outside of voting for against Speaker Pelosi, that's one of the first votes you cast if elected is who you're going to be the Speaker, is I want to vote to repeal Obamacare. I do not think the government has any business mandating individual health care. If they really want to be serious about tackling cost, they need to go after some of these lawsuit abuses that they see and some of the fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, let's be honest. A family of four that makes almost $50,000 a year currently can qualify for Medicaid. That should not be, no one should be able to do that. We're giving away the farm to people that, have the ability to pay for it themselves. So it's a broad approach. We have to tackle entitlements. It's over 60% of our budget. The national interest on our debt is exponentially getting worse. And my fear is we could become a Greece. And the problem with that is when you get the bailout from other countries, you don't get to negotiate the terms. So we have to tackle it.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which I think if you're talking about representing the PD and Horry County, which if you're watching us this morning, chances are you're going to be in the new 7th Congressional District, unless you're in North Carolina.
Right.
Parts of the PD have seen just massive unemployment. What can you do beyond the debt ceiling, beyond talking about those issues? What can you do to bring jobs back to the area?
Great question. You know, there's an opportunity in this crisis that we're seeing in this country. If I was in Congress today, I would tell President Obama, call us back to a special session of Congress. Let's lower the tax rates for businesses and corporations that are shipping jobs overseas. They're doing that because America has one of the highest corporate tax rates. You hear all the time, well, companies like GE, they didn't pay taxes last year. Well, they did. They just did it through tax credits by buying water and sewer systems in Poland for a tax credit. We need that investment here. And then they'll come back here if the government's not taking every bit of profit margin they have. You know, make it...
One point, though.
Okay.
That's an easy thing to say, but if you cut taxes to businesses, a lot of people say they're not going to use that to create jobs. They're going to use that to pad profits.
You know, I do not subscribe to that theory, and I tell you why. A lot of these companies that are holding these cash reserves back, they're doing it because they don't know what the climate's going to be the next day. I mean, you have a federal government currently, right now, every other month, they're passing down these burdensome regulations. You know, businesses, small businesses have to hire a team of lawyers just to keep up. You know, look at what look at what FEMA's doing to the beaches right now with all the enclosures of the pools. I mean, that's a nightmare. You know, that's one example. You know, if we want to talk about government spending that works, you know, Interstate 73, that's something that would help out the PD. The economic impact is clear through an independent study. But what are we doing? We're spending money on like Woodstock Museum in New York. I mean, give me a break. I mean, there are solutions there. They're not the easiest solutions, but they're there. It just takes leadership, and that is what's missing in Washington at the federal level. Our federal delegation is doing a great job, I believe, with the exception of one member. But I want to be able to be another player on the team to help combat the overburdensome intrusiveness of the federal government in everyone's lives.
Do you think a fair tax is something that should be considered?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's easier for folks to work within their system of taxes when it's a flat-out consumer-based tax. You know, a lot of the folks in your, I would call, area have made it a little more complicated, but overall, it's a good system to go off of. You know, but you look at our federal tax regulations, that's a great segue. I mean, our federal tax regulations are bigger than the Bible. I mean, it shouldn't have to be that complicated to do business in the greatest country on the planet. And that's what this is about. This is about American exceptionalism. I love this country. I grew up poor, grew up in Ammons Mobile Home Park, not even 5 miles from here. My parents and I worked my way to get through college and go to school. And I believe that America still is the freedom, the light on that shining hill that Ronald Reagan talked about. And we need to work to actively protect and defend that. And I'm not hearing a lot of that out of Washington today. What I'm hearing about is it's someone else's fault. You know, it's always let's kick the can down the road, just like this debt deal. You know, in 10 years we're going to take off $1 trillion of debt. Well, what about the other $16 trillion that are there? All we've done was reduce the speeding off the cliff from 80 miles per hour to 79, and then want a medal for it. It's just wrong, and I want to fight that.
All right. Let's take a quick break and continue our conversation with State Representative, who wants to be U.S. Representative, Thad Viers, when we come back.
Thank you.